am a intimacy and relating coach, Galina Singer. I am certified in somatic healing and sexology, but I think the most important thing about why, you know, why I feel ready to be the one speaking on this subject and kind of answering your questions is because about 10 years ago, I started feeling extremely miserable in my multi-decade marriage with my husband. And as recently as 5 years ago, I was fully planning to leave. So, finding myself today perfectly happy, still with the same person, is a kind of a journey that has gone against everything that I thought about what love is and where it comes from, what relationships are about. And, so basically everything that I teach and everything that I speak about is informed by that inner journey of going from like misery, unheard, unseen, unfulfilled to this like perfectly happy place. Nothing has, I mean, still same husband. Not much has changed about him. Everything has changed about me. And so whatever has changed about him is kind of his responding to the changes in me. So this is what I share. I share, the way I work in and about relationships, it's about our relationship with ourselves. So first of all, everything is relationship, right? Whether we relate, how we relate to our body, how we relate to our mind, our thoughts, our beliefs, how we relate to our past, what we think about our future, what are the expectations and dreams about, future or our partners or what life should be like. We don't even realize to what extent that's informed by our past, by our childhood, and by our beliefs. And of course, our beliefs is what creates feelings and triggers and reactions in our body. And our reactions are ours, but we have a tendency to attribute them to the people with whom we were experiencing what we're experiencing. So there is a lot of confusion and there is a lot of that kind of enmeshment where we think that whatever we're feeling in our body is because of somebody on the outside of our body. And this is the kind of most important myth that I'm interested in breaking and kind of poking at. My community, people who read me, are quite international. And what I'm finding is, and so quite international, meaning that there are lots of cultures. And I myself am multicultural. I was born in the Soviet Union. My family immigrated to the States when I was a teenager. When I got married, we lived in France for, over 25 years. Now I'm in Mexico and we continue traveling in Spanish-speaking world now. But basically, I see that at the level of our body and the way our nervous system works and responds, we are very like the humanity in us is the one common ingredient. So what's super important in the work that I offer is once we understand ourselves and how we operate, we then have this beautiful understanding and kind of compassion to to other people that we relate with. And actually, I'm reading an incredible book about the life of trees now, where, we're talking about trees also having feelings and feeling pain and everything like that, which is actually really changing my relationship with trees and plants in general. So I was inspired to hold these monthly conversations about relationships, and I want to give the rest of the time to you. Just to explain a little bit on Substack, because I started putting a lot of my writing on Substack. This is where I'm going to be housing my whole archive and everything. And kind of to give something to people who are subscribing, I want to, this is my pleasure to be in conversation with you, to get to know what you are thinking and feeling these days, and to kind of offer whatever I've gathered on my journey, whatever wisdom, but with the purpose to bring you back to yourself and bring you back to your own wisdom. Like, I'm certainly not into any kind of formulas. I'm not at all interested in that because I don't believe in formulas. I don't think they exist when it comes to human beings. And each one of us is so uniquely individual, even if we were raised in the same families. or same cultures, same countries. And so our partners in whatever relationship, it could be, whether romantic partners or our parents or, other family members, siblings, children, colleagues at work, everything is going to be very unique. And so each relationship is going to be very unique. And to me, the most important ingredient is that capacity for you to attune to yourself and to understand if you're triggered, for example, what is this trigger about? Because we tend to focus on like, oh my God, this person, did this, or I hate it when they say this or when they do this, but actually this has very little to do with the person. And it has everything to do with you and your own reaction. So I want to stop talking here unless you have a specific question for me about me. And I want to give the floor to you. I also want to drop into the chat the link for Substack before I completely forget about the whole reason why I'm doing this. And just so that in case if you're inspired, it would be so wonderful to have you become one of my subscribers so that I can continue offering to you these monthly sessions, and I will, and you'll also have access to archives and all kinds of other things. The recording from this will be placed in a library that will contain all the recordings from all the monthly sessions from now on. Today is the first. And then obviously all the articles and all the archives and all the other master classes and everything that I'll put there. Okay, that's enough from me. I'd love to hear from you. So if you have any questions, anything but relationship, and as I said, relationship is everything, anything, please go ahead. Yeah, Ophelia, please.
So I have one. Thank you, Galina, which I've been meaning to ask you for a while, because it's been coming up for a few months. As I mean, we've done some work, we've done a lot of work together, especially around, I mean, relationships in general, but especially around my romantic relationship. And so I've kind of been working through, and I'm always really interested to know, like I've gone through a phase where I'm very interested to know how other people are relating, because I don't know, I like knowing how, like what experience people are having, because I think sometimes we think a specific thing is very normalized, and then like we think that a specific way of relating is normal, and so we feel strange because we're not relating like other people. So I've kind of quite
Mhm.
enjoyed like actually hearing all the different ways people are relating. And my question, which is um I don't even know if it's a proper question, but basically I'm genuinely interested in knowing, like I was thinking about this, like how much time am I supposed to dedicate to my romantic relationship? Like is there a percentage of time that people use, like, put in their romantic relationship? Do people dedicate like X amount of time per day or per week? And I'd love to know your experience and just even other people's experiences as well around
Yeah.
that.
Thank you for this question. It's an interesting question because for me, it's about permission more than anything else. And we're so tempted to have a kind of a formula. Like I think we all want to have something that's given to us, like, okay, if you spend 30% per day, on your body, or like 10% on your, on your mind, and then, 50% on your romantic relationship. And as I said before, there is no such thing. And I'm curious for each of you to please also feel free to contribute, whether in the chat or unmute yourself afterward. To me, if we want a formula to be imposed to us from outside, like if I were to give you a formula, I will be doing you a disservice because then you're not attuning to your needs and what you need to contribute to this relationship or the needs of your partner. Do you see what I mean? So for me, the most important thing is to to be in like, what are my needs today? What are my needs now? These needs can change tomorrow or in a month or in a year, depending on what cycle in your life you're on. Like I am now 35 years married to the same person. We have gone through so many different stages. So as newlyweds, obviously we were a lot together. Then the children came and that put a lot of pressure and kind of gave some sort of separateness as a woman of 59, I need a lot of personal space. And even though we're again just the two of us, we also really enjoy spending a lot of time apart just as much as we're enjoying a lot of time together. And then, of course, because we've been together for so long, there seems to be less of a need for that like daily maintenance. We can kind of maybe sometimes even take each other for granted, but it's so secure, like the foundation is so secure by now that it is more stretchy and more durable. So, I kind of want to bring the question back to you for you to, and you don't have to answer obviously here, but for you to kind of contemplate, first of all, what causes you to ask this question? Do you feel that there is some kind of not enough happening, either from your partner or from yourself? And can you trust yourself that if, for example, you are now diverted by, I don't know, building your business or, building a career and you need that space for yourself, that, you're also attuned enough to your partner on the evenings, on the weekends, that you will be able to tell if something is missing or there is some kind of strain. I think it's super, super important that that kind of attunement needs to always be there. Do you want to respond?
Yeah. No, but I'm just thinking, I mean, I guess it's it's been my whole process in relationships of like understanding at what point, well, I guess not needing to do something because not needing to do something to be in a relationship. Like I don't need to change, I don't need to well, I don't know, maybe it's like a fine balance between making an effort
Mhm.
and making an effort that isn't me or that isn't what I truly
Mhm.
want.
Mhm.
So that's been a bit of a process for me. So I think I like it's always good for me to hear, to be reminded of that, of there being no formulas.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I think the best thing about no formula is it allows you every day or even every hour to be whatever you need it to be.
Mhm.
And really being more in that responsive mode to what do I need now, and what does my partner or our relationship. For me, relationship is something to serve all people involved. It's not people to sacrifice for this relationship that is some abstract creature. For me, relationship is this, form, foundation that supports all people involved. And
Mhm.
everyone, yes, contributes, deposits uh, something into that bank so that everyone can thrive from it. But it shouldn't be from sacrifice. It should really be from like, how can this support me? And yes, and the reciprocity, obviously, as always, right? The give and take and everything. Anything else that if you're happy with that, Ophelia?
No, it's great. It's great. It's just a big reminder for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can feel actually also how much I've changed, how much things have changed since
Mm,
um, since the beginning of this journey. So it's
yeah.
amazing.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to has a question? Yeah, Cara, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to can just first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah, good.
I
Okay,
can.
good. Yeah, I just wanted to, it's so interesting that Ophelia asked that question because it was recently my wedding anniversary and I joked because I said, "Oh, David and I celebrated by having a huge argument," which it's funny. It seems to happen on days. It's maybe the pressure and that sort of thing. But it was around, and it was resolved. But it was around that having different expectations and um, me kind of caring about my day, doing things for the kids, and then like saying, "Oh well, I'm going to come and lie in the hammock and read it. We'd read a book." And then David thought, "Well, that's a lovely idea," but then I got distracted by something and did something else, and he ended up feeling really hurt that I'd spent barely any time with him on our anniversary,
Mhm.
and was carrying that, but kind of quietly, and I was so shocked by his reaction, but had been building up not just on that day, but for a little while.
Mhm.
And that just speaks to what you said is that it's kind of this negotiated thing, but it's something that's tricky because you don't say, well, I require 45 minutes of your time today, and it changes, as you say, and it changes in the seasons of your life, it changes day to day, depending on what's happening. I have recently been very distracted from the family and from David specifically. He comes last on the list, after the kids. My
Mhm.
dad wasn't well. He died earlier this month, and that, I guess, was building up. Um, and I was completely unaware of it. So it is a real I suppose as you get on in relationships, as you said, you just kind of take it for granted, and it is more durable, and um, it varies, but it's something to pay attention to, because it doesn't just happen. You do kind of need to consciously be present for that person, and they may often need your attention and just your, not so much attention, but just your real presence without being distracted, in a way that you don't always realize. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
That's great. Are
Mhm.
you open to me kind of contributing a little bit to
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I guess that's why we have these anniversaries and these moments where, we're supposed to take that time out of the busy lives and actually do something together to celebrate the moment. I think when you say there were different expectations, to me, when there are different expectations, I would say some kind of communication was missing. So maybe as, this day of anniversary was approaching, you could have maybe said, okay, what are we doing today? And so that everybody can rely on a specific structure of the
Mm,
day. And then you can also kind of hold yourself to your promise, right? Because if it wasn't voiced, if it wasn't spoken about, then it kind of remains ephemeral,
yeah.
whereas if it's stated and kind of committed to, then it's easier to honor it, because or you would have to say, oh my God, I need an extra half hour to finish what I'm doing, because you've already committed, and you remain
Mm,
committed to that, whatever it is that you promised, right? Expectations are only clashing or dis kind of disappointed if we haven't communicated them. And if we haven't communicated them, then we cannot expect that I always say we cannot read each other's minds. Unfortunately, we really don't. We can sense some things, but we cannot really read each other's minds. And I don't believe in being hyper vigilant in relationships. I believe in every grown up that is present in relationship being responsible for communicating their needs,
mm.
rather than us trying to guess or like,
Oh,
constantly,
for sure.
right? So that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Tell me.
And the other thing that just came up as well is that it's not always about, you can't measure value or quality by quantity, because you can't say like 10 minutes, 2 hours, whatever it may be, because sometimes it's just that moment of connection, the stopping, being really there together, acknowledging the other person,
Mhm,
and that sometimes can be enough.
mhm,
Versus an hour or two of distracted togetherness. So I think that's something maybe, Ophelia, if it's helpful to kind of consider, is that not everything is quantitative. Sometimes, especially with relationships, it's about the quality, and it's tricky, because I like to know, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm making an assumption here, but to know that, okay, the boxes are checked. I've done, kids' needs, my needs, I've gone for my run, have I? And because relationship is, and romantic relationship is so, yeah, as you say, ephemeral, and then if needs are not communicated, it can feel like there should be some sort of
mhm.
structured way. But yeah, Gadina, as you say, communication comes back to communication.
I mean, I think structure, again, depends on the unique needs of each couple, of each relationship, right?
Mm,
Whoever we're talking
mm,
about. Because, I think if our romantic relationships become one of the chores on the list, it very quickly will lose its romanticism. So that's why I just feel like there has to be that kind of from inwardly guided structure, I guess, right? But from inwardly guided, something that is that is driven from inspiration, desire, and the wanting to be with this person, right? And then like honoring things like the birthdays and anniversaries or whatever, weekends or holidays. You know, I feel and often speak that every day should be a celebration and everything, but you know, realistically, it's not always possible. But on these special days, and we can create, you know, every day we can. Like I know some couples that I work with, they read poetry at night. You know, they can read one poem at night, and that kind of after a crazy day of busyness, that gives that, you know, 5 minutes of real intimacy. And another couple goes, you know, on their walk in the morning, holding hands, you know, through the forest after they've raised children and all that stuff. Somebody else maybe just sharing coffee in the morning at 5 in the morning while the children are still sleeping because all hell will break loose when they wake up, you know, things like that. So it's up to each one of you to decide what feels like it for you, you know?
Hmm.
Anyone else? Yes, yes, Sarah, please.
This is super interesting. Thank you. I have so many questions and like so
Good.
many thoughts coming to mind. I've been with my romantic partner for around 12 years, and I'm about to be 30 years old. So started very young, and we've definitely gone through a lot of different phases, which I'm sure are very different from the phases that you've gone through, because we really haven't had any real commitments when it comes to children or, yeah, doing things together up until sort of, yeah, important things together, like sharing a rent, up until very recently. And in March, we moved from the UK to Madrid, which is home. And maybe this comes to you, Ophelia, but then it will develop into a question. When we moved, my boyfriend has started a business in Madrid, so this was taking a lot of his time, and I really easily saw myself fall into patterns where it was like, okay, we have responsibilities, there's chores at home, this needs to be 50-50, like we need to sort of share the responsibility here. And it very quickly turned into a lot of blame and a lot of, to be honest, hate for the other person. And it was like, yeah, I sort of started picturing him, and this is super scary because it really demonstrates like how ephemeral it can be, really portraying him as this image of someone that I hate, where it's like he's addicted to his work and he just cares about money and things that I really don't think about him, but there were behaviors that could really easily make me sort of think of him this way. And to the contrary, I was in a way knowing, but I couldn't stop this, making myself this person where I was sort of knowingly hurting my relationship to the point where I knew it could end. Basically, portraying myself as the person that only cares about the house and only cares about the responsibilities, and basically making him think that I had all of a sudden become his sexy, free girlfriend and had just become into this person who was just caring about the house and was blaming him for not doing everything. And it was really, really scary because it was quite conflictive. And yeah, I think I have no idea how, but this has changed and we've been able to communicate and sort of get out of the blame. But my question to you, I guess, is how do you find the strength? Because this is something small in the sense that we don't have children involved, we don't have any sort of big worries involved. How do you find the strength when there's big problems or big things going on in life to, yeah, I think I'm just really scared that this has happened, that this can happen again, because yeah, it can really easily fall into very destructive patterns. And I don't think I'm this person, but I was just, yeah, I was just unable to just fall out of these destructive patterns. Sorry, I don't know if this made any sense.
It makes sense. And I took some notes. I hope you don't mind. just to
Yeah.
kind of hold myself. So, first of all, I would say trust yourself, because you're saying that even though all this was becoming very scary and you weren't recognizing yourself anymore, you were able to, from what I understand, you are able to kind of talk about it. And so, first mirroring back to you is trust yourself that you will know that your instincts are right. But what you're describing is very, very interesting, I think, especially for a female, because, this is what I often hear. I got married and lost myself. This is how I found myself, in my mid 40s, where I was like, wait, who am I? Where am I? Like, what even happened? What happened to me? I was that, I was looking at my 18-year-old daughter and thinking, wait, that was me, all those years ago. Like, what happened? So I think it's really, really interesting, that identity switch that can be very, very subtle, and we don't see it. And we continue identifying basically with these new tendencies and like temptations. So basically, as you've become responsible for this home, I'm sure that some kind of childhood coping mechanism kicked in, being like the responsible one, the serious one, the one who needs to keep everything orderly, and kind of you took that responsibility on yourself. Then the fact that he was putting his attention elsewhere, then you probably felt abandoned, not validated, unseen, unheard, all that. So for me, the question is, first order, of questioning is, what were the needs that were not being met? Where was that new identity of the adult, the adulting, where you become responsible for everything? Where did that hijack some other needs of yours, right? Like you say, that sexy, free young woman, like, where did she go, right? Like, what happened there? Why did the serious, responsible one, hypervigilant one, why did she override the sexy, free, beautiful girl who you were identifying with before, right? All these parts are within you. So what happens? Why at some point one takes over and the other one becomes subdued? So how can we live more in the range of who we are, kind of having access to all the roles as they're needed, right? Like we often say a woman is, today we have many women who run businesses, and, how can she be a CEO in the boardroom, but, a slutty, sexy, crazy one at home when she gets to her partner, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the most important thing is not to judge the responsible you who kind of took over, but rather in that curiosity and patience without judgment to look at, okay, like what's going on, what's happening, what am I worried about, right? Like what's the fear that you had, like that everything had to be controlled and perfect, right? What to me it's some kind of wounding from the past, a coping mechanism. And then, the free and the sexy one, like what happened to her? Why did she cede the place on center stage? Do you know what I mean? Like what happened? Why did you become the nagging, which is so tempting, the nagging kind of unsatisfied wife material, or like that kind of partner, rather than the free, like all of them are within you, right? So for you to be in, and again, I think the most important thing here is not to become judgmental, because if you start judging one part over the other, then you'll be struggling with like suppressing, and it'll create more distortion for you with you. And then once you understand what's happening for you and what your needs are, and how can you find means and resources to meet your needs, then you can start speaking to your partner in a different tone of voice, right? Because when you tell me, oh my God, I felt like I hated him, I'm like, I totally hear you. I've been there many times. If we could try to communicate something to anyone, right, whether it's just a friend, a romantic partner, out of hate or that kind of pent up, fiery, strong emotion, we're not going to be heard, because they will become on the defensive, right? Like that kind of energetic current that is so aggressive and powerful, like even if you're saying it with a smile, like your energy precedes you, you know? So then for me, it's like, how can I regulate myself? How can I understand myself first? And then I can communicate to my partner in life, like, I would love it if you could, it would make me so much more relaxed, or I would feel so much safer if, do you know what I mean? Speaking about you and your needs rather than like, you've become such an asshole, you're a workaholic, all you care about is money. It's like that, you know, even if
Exactly.
so when we start a conversation from that, it's not going to get us where we want to get to, you know? So that for me is like, but first you and you understanding what's happening. I mean, I think you're already beautifully attuned because you noticed like I've become someone else or like these other tendencies. Tell me.
Thank you. No, I think the inner child aspect of it is really interesting because there's so many things, so many patterns that I think are very ingrained in us that we've seen maybe with our parents or the way they've behaved
Yeah.
when they're at home, and you just think that you have to be that, and that's part of adulthood. And I guess that there's just a different way of being an adult that
Mm.
is more aligned with the way I want to live
Yeah.
and feel.
That's great. So that's wonderful. I mean, also, yes, the attachment wounds get kicked up when we are in a romantic relationship. And our attachment wounds obviously originate with our parents or whoever were the caregivers. So it's super important to remember that if you are driven by your attachment wounds, you are no longer relating to actually the person you're in relationship with. You're still stuck in the argument or some kind of needing to prove something to one of your parents. So it's super, super important to try to leave the baggage in the past and kind of be here now. And how do we be here now? The most important thing is to be in the observer mode. So kind of like what I sense you already doing in that you saw yourself. Like you didn't tell me, he's such an idiot, I hate him and he's a workaholic and all that. You were like, I noticed that I'm feeling these things. Do you know that's the difference? So that's already an amazing thing where you are in the mode of the observer rather than drowning in these feelings, right? If you're in the mode of the observer, you can see that it's not so much about him, it's about what's coming up for you. And when you are with your own feelings, something can be done with, you can do something about that, right? You can either do like a somatic exercise to regulate your system, or you can, understand what are the needs that aren't being met, and you are responsible for your needs as an adult. So is there something that you're not doing for yourself? And then also, I'm not into, we definitely need other people, and I'm not interested in like creating, people that are hyper self-sufficient and don't need anybody. That's the other side of woundedness for sure, right? Like we have either codependence or hyper independence. Both are two sides of the same coin. So I think it's really, really interesting to continue observing and, focusing on like what's going on, what need is not being met for you, what can you do to meet it for yourself, and if you need help of your partner to meet some of these needs, how will you communicate that, so that he hears you?
Thank you so much. That's
Yeah,
super, super interesting. Thank you.
great. Anyone else? Yes, Stephanie. Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, great. I apologize for earlier. I was really having some trouble.
no worries.
Um, I have a question that has come up for me, I think largely because I started about 6 years ago to do a lot of mindfulness practices
Mhm.
and meditation, and it's not something that my husband does or is
Mhm.
interested in. And I think that the more I'm able to sort of take um, a, the more I understand my behavior patterns and the patterns in the way we interact, the more I recognize where we get into trouble. But when I try and talk to him about it, frequently I feel like in order to express myself in an authentic way, that he gets angry, he'll try and shut me down, he doesn't want to hear it. And that I find that generally speaking, sort of the Buddhist advice is to just refrain from saying certain things so that I don't create a lot of turmoil in the relationship. And that to me feels like it may be the appropriate thing for me to do in certain situations, political things that really bother me that he just doesn't want to hear about, or ways that we're relating to each other, or changes I'd like to see in him that he's not necessarily recognizing or would be useful. And so I find that I'm sort of struggling with whether or not to simply remain silent, in which I feel like I'm losing a bit of agency, or expressing myself in an authentic way. And it's not that I want to say things to him that aren't true, but maybe I just don't say anything. But I'm finding that I'm getting increasingly lonelier because I'm not relating to him authentically, and I'm very aware of it. And I even wonder if maybe a lot of the closeness that I imagined earlier in the relationship was my own projection of what was happening. So I'm in a situation now. I've been married almost 28 years. I have a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old, both of who are living in different states. And I'm really struggling. I mean, we're better together than apart, but we really don't have a close, loving relationship. We have sort of more, for practical reasons, it makes sense for us to continue to be married and to live together. And it strikes me that there may be some similarities to what you went through when you talk about not really know. I mean, I don't want to leave my husband. He may choose to leave me, and that's okay if that's what he needs to do for himself. But just sort of moving through the day and how is it that I show up for him is getting really challenging. And I'm hoping you have some wise words for me.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing all this. I mean, and thank you everyone for your vulnerability, because these I think it's important to share, and kind of to Ophélie's initial statement, when we hear other people going through these things that we find ourselves going through, it gives us a kind of I don't know, I think it's kind of healing and it's comforting, right? That we're not struggling in the isolation with this, that everyone is having some kind of challenges. Relating is complicated, and we don't really have skills, and they're not really taught. We only have, like these myths and Cinderella stories and like, Snow White and all that stuff. That's kind of the only thing we go into relationships with, that kind of stuff in our mind, and then we suffer when our real life doesn't compare to these idealized happily ever after scenarios. So, but to you specifically, Stephanie, first of all, I think, again, it's very, very wise of you to realize that there is a benefit to being together. I think that's when we start focusing on things we don't like about our partners, we forget and kind of disregard the things that are good about our partners, So for example, like cohabiting, co-parenting, whatever, like certain history, like all the ways that your partner has been contributing. And I hear you that now you're kind of trying to reframe the past and where you even connected before. But I think You probably were. It's just before, for example, raising children and being busy with like work and life, whatever you were able to give to each other, even if that meant co-providing or driving children to wherever they needed to go, that felt like a lot in that moment, right? Now that the children have grown, you want more. So while you were speaking, one thing that I really wanted to say is we really need a village to thrive. So I hear you, for example, you have these strong feelings about, political situations and you have these opinions that you'd like to express. From what I hear, your husband probably doesn't have the capacity. It's like me and my husband, when he starts talking about politics, I'm like, the steam is coming out of my ears and I don't want to yell or scream because I know better. But at the same time, I really just like I can only take politics in the doses that I can process them in. So, I create the whatever 5, 10 minutes, however long per day, so that I don't come out of my capacity and get overwhelmed. And then I just like, I hate him for something that Trump did, something like that. So I want to say, do you have other community? Do you have friends? Do you have like-minded people? Do you have siblings? Somebody with whom you can speak about politics more freely and kind of leave your husband out of those conversations if he's showing that he is not capable to meet you there. Do you see everyone? It's kind of like, yeah, you have this need to share and to speak authentically. I totally get it. Your need is very valuable to you, but your husband has another need. He is, highly triggered. Maybe he is too overwhelmed by the fear that these news may bring out in him, and he cannot meet you there. So again, like who are some other people with whom you can talk about this?
Yeah, and I think with things like politics, he and I have actually had conversations where I was I was a philosophy major in college, and then I went to law school and I worked in social justice, and I got a degree in political science and international politics. And I have very deep values about certain things, and I love theory and I love playing with ideas. And he's like the math business person. He has no interest in any of it. And we've actually had conversations where, he says, I recognize that you're really lonely. You talk about this stuff. I don't understand what you're saying. It seems like I like going deep and I go deep fast, which is why I can come onto a platform like this and kind of spill my guts, right? But he's not that sort of a person. He lives more on the surface, and that's okay. And it makes him much better at doing practical things. I'm kind of useless when it comes to stuff like that. But he actually says, I know you're lonely. I can't be that person for you. The day after my mom died, he said, I can't be that person for you. Instead of being there to comfort me, he said, I cannot step in. And at least he was being honest, right? But the problem for me is that it's my primary relationship and it feels surface level. And that's lonely. I want more from it, but I'm kind of now, after all these years, resigned to the fact that it's not going to be that way. And I just don't know. Is it just rely on the village and just, it's sort of where I am now with the relationship. Occasionally it's really troubling, or he does things that I think are insensitive, and he probably doesn't even recognize them as insensitive. And so, but I'm constantly checking myself in order to keep things okay between us, because it's just not worth the turmoil when I don't do that. But there is a feeling that I have about and I have to own it, because I think when I was younger, I wasn't courageous enough to be in the kind of relationship I want now as a 60-year-old woman. And so that's why I find myself where I am now. I recognize that and I own it. The question is, do I just sort of learn a different way of being with him, or do I, I don't know,
I hear you. Yeah. So, I mean, and I certainly will not tell you how to be. I will say, continue being whatever feels true to you, because that's the beauty of becoming 60 and above, is that we're becoming, much more courageous to speak things that we didn't dare to speak before. And wherever that'll take your relationship, you don't have to, you don't have to kind of make any kind of choice about it. Is there anything that satisfies you in your relationship?
Sure. He can be wonderful. He can be kind. He gives me back rubs at night. I don't do that for him. You know,
Yeah.
that's pretty great.
Yeah. So you see, again, everyone, like, there is no one who is just bad. Like, that doesn't exist. All of our relationships are complex animals, complex beings that consist of very complex humans, participants. So, I hear you that there is a whole bunch of stuff that now feels like not enough. And I'm also bringing your attention to the fact that there is some stuff that is actually enough and kind of nice and really, really pleasant, right?
Yeah.
So, and also I hear when you said that you don't really want to leave, like you'd like to make this work. So when I say make this work, I don't mean make this work like for him. I mean make it work for you. Do you know what I mean? You'd like to make it work for you so that you in this relationship can feel satisfied. And to me, that means paying more attention on the things that you do actually enjoy and value in him, and not disregard, not necessarily disregard the things that you cannot get from him, but again, have your, like, I hear you, you're a person with a lot of curiosity and you want to go deep and you want to explore. Are there any colleagues? Are there any friends, siblings, or even do you feel like writing your opinions? Like today, whoever, we have all these platforms, anybody can be an authority on something. Can you allow yourself to maybe express your opinions if they feel like this is what started happening to me. My opinions were becoming so big to just hold in my own body that I needed to start spilling them out. So maybe for you now it's a matter of allowing yourself to start speaking these things to a wider audience than just your husband, et cetera, et cetera. And there was something else that I wanted to say. I just wrote down a few words as you were speaking. Turmoil for me is not a problem in relationships. For me, any kind of conflict is an opportunity to go to greater intimacy. So whenever something bubbles up to the surface, for me, that means it was already kind of living under the surface anyway. And then, the conflict, the turmoil is when all this energy that was kind of subconscious actually breaks through to the surface and is being seen. And that to me gives enormous amount of information that can bring you closer together if you actually pay attention to by like what's being expressed. And another thing is that I hear you, like you've done so much work and you do meditation and mindfulness and all that stuff, and your husband doesn't. However, the fact that he was able to come to you when your mother died and say, I cannot be here for you, takes enormous amount of self-awareness and actually courage to speak. Because like a normal person who is like kind of not aware, he wouldn't just say anything. He would just kind of fizzle out and hide somewhere or maybe shut down, and you wouldn't even know what the hell is going on. So for somebody to actually communicate the limitations of his own capacity to you is so clear. Do you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
often also advise people that I work with, like sometimes we just need a professional, like something like grieving of a deceased member of a family. Like it's such a big somatic emotional event for our bodies that we do need somebody who is actually trained to hold us through this process. And most of our, human relating partners don't have the capacity. They're not trained for it. They don't know how.
Yeah, I've been in therapy for about 40 years.
Yeah. So I think that's great. Do you know what I mean? You give yourself
Yeah,
means to have your needs met. That's the most important. That's what we're talking about here, right?
yeah,
So that your husband can show up for you in a way that he is capable, and in the ways when he is not capable, you go and you step into agency to have those needs met otherwise.
right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that your needs are met, no matter whether he can or cannot meet them for you. That's ultimately what we're talking about. Is that complete, Stephanie?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think you're just affirming that I'm more or less on the right track, and I just need to keep feeling my way through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it takes a lot of it takes a lot of self-awareness. But that's great, and that's really good for me. You know, I mean, I sometimes get frustrated, like I'm doing so much work, do the work, you
Mm.
know, but if he doesn't want to do the work, it's, you
Yeah.
know, it's his life, it's his
Yeah.
choice. So
His path. His
I'll
path.
just keep
Yeah.
doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I mean, I see in my notes, like change, like you wanted him to change some things. And that's for all of us. Like we cannot change anyone. And anytime we um, tell them that we want something to be changed in them, it feels very, they recoil from that. It's like judging any of us. Like if somebody were to, if your partner came to you and said, you know what, cut the hair, lose the weight, read more books, it's so, so hurtful to receive that. So that's how they receive it, like let's learn to love the people we're with the way they are. And whatever it is that bothers us, let's listen to like what's that about and what is the need that's being exposed. Great. Auguste, I see you. Let me just check. There's something in the chat. Yeah, yeah. Which one, Ophelie? The changing or the changing of the partner, or what were you responding
Yeah,
to?
the changing your partner, like
Yeah.
asking them to change. Nope.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
no. Yeah. Nobody wants to change. Nobody wants to change unless they're inspired to change. So let's be the muse, right? Like whether we're, female or male, let's be the muse. And how do we become a muse? By being the change, by showing up the way we want them to show up, by being the one who begins that process. All right, Auguste, tell me.
Um, so thank you so much, by the way, for this. This is so interesting, and thank you everyone for sharing. My question is kind of, I suppose, different in the sense that we've been talking about romantic relationships, and I don't know whether this also kind of applies to maybe family kind of dynamics as well, in
Mm.
terms of, we were just talking about not being able to change someone, especially, you don't choose your family.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm living back home with my family because I'm kind of in a transitional period. So it's kind of obviously brings up a lot of, past kind of
Mhm.
not well traumas, but also behaviors. And I think I've grown a lot by kind of seeing myself as I was before and seeing who I'm becoming now. But I was wondering, I guess my question here was, um, do you think healing can happen inside, or does it happen also in a relationship? Meaning, can we, for example, I go to therapy, I can talk about some of the issues I have.
Mhm.
Can that be enough, or do you then have to go and kind of say
Mhm.
certain things in the relationship,
Mm.
or do you
That's such
keep
a
these
great
things?
question. Yeah, such a wonderful question. And I mean, totally understandable. Even as adults, when we go back and relate to our parents, we become that child. It's again kind of like what Sarah was saying. It requires enormous amount of observation to understand, oh my God, I'm in my inner child now. I'm not in my adult anymore. And so what to answer your question, which is such a good one, is I think it's both. I think healing ultimately happens in our own body and mind. However, in order to get there, we kind of have to bounce whatever changes we create within us. We need to then go and bounce by the people with whom we're relating for them to stick and to create change, right? That's what transformation is when that change is created in where relating with the same people becomes a different kind of relating because of the changes that you have brought into the relationship, right? So, for example, you can do therapy or you can do whatever you're discovering that this is who you are as an adult, as a grown man and everything. And then when you come back to your home, the original home, oh, there you are. You can start notice, like, again, being the observer, you can start noticing how you're responding in a way that's not who you are today. Kind of like what Sarah was saying, right? Like when you start catching yourself that you're responding from your inner child, you don't even have to have these words, but you can just notice, like, I said no where I meant yes, or I said yes when I meant no. And then it takes enormous amount of courage to actually respond differently to the pattern that's been set for decades, maybe generations, maybe intergenerationally. That's healing. And then when you start, so basically the way the patterns are built, I kind of look at them. So there are two extremes, like you hold this end of the pattern, your parents hold that end of the pattern. So we're always just kind of on this seesaw. If you start changing the pattern, they don't have a choice but change according, like if you turn this way, they have to turn in order to remain in relationship with you. If you change, they will change. That's the trick. Do you see? If you
Yeah.
continue responding in the same ways you've always done, they will just continue behaving the way they've always done.
Yeah,
Anything
that
else
actually
comes
makes,
up?
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because it's true. I was thinking kind of maybe too literally in the sense of having to state something, say, okay, this is what I've learned, and therefore you go out into the relationship and state it. But actually, you can change things through behavior and through, changing what your boundaries are and what you say no to, and yeah. So that
Yeah.
really speaks to me. Yeah.
The boundaries, which I think is often misunderstood in today's kind of relationship conversations and advice, the boundaries are not rules. The boundaries are about you. So, for example, you can say somebody, don't call me after 9 p.m., and they will or will not honor them. That's just a rule that they can break, right? A boundary is, I'm not taking calls after 9 p.m. Do you see the difference?
Mm.
They can do whatever they want. They can call, not call. It doesn't matter. For you, the boundary is that after 9 p.m., you're not taking calls. That's it. No more going back and forth. You called me again. I told you not to call me. It's like none of it, like all of that just gets eliminated immediately. I don't answer phone call. You don't even have to communicate it to them. You just tell it to yourself. After 9 p.m., I don't take calls. That's it.
Yeah.
So same kind of, whatever issue that may be with your parents or anyone for that matter, the boundary is you and you. And will you honor your own boundary regardless of what they do?
Yeah.
Right?
So it's a relationship with yourself, basically.
Always.
Yeah.
Always, right? And we can only teach others to treat us the way we treat ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That was really, really helpful.
Wonderful. So it's been about an hour, but I'm happy to stay longer if like let's keep chatting if anything else comes up. Does anybody have a question? Or if not, I'll be happy to say goodbye, but I'll give you a few more moments to consider. Let me see. The whole point is to learn to love the person you are with. And that means focusing on what is lovable about them to you, right? Like I feel like not enough attention is being placed on the things that are good and lovable about our partners already. Like that's what changed my marriage as well, right? When I was stuck in my like unsatisfaction, I was just focused on all the stuff that irritated me. And I thought that that was his fault, that I was irritated. Whereas when I understood that my irritation is mine and it speaks about some needs that are not fulfilled and that those needs are mine, also my responsibility since I'm a grown up. And then also learning to receive, learning to be open to the things that are already wonderful, or at least even just pleasant, is huge. So to relate to people in their complexity, right? Where we keep on wanting to dimensionalize them, like to just make them either good or bad, and they're not. They're everything. There are some things that annoy the hell out of us, and there are some things that are just so beautiful. And the people we relate with are all of it. They are. We need to be able to relate to them in their complexity, and not to flatten them out. And also, through Stephanie, what you mentioned, the more we learn about ourselves, in my experience, the more we can be in compassion and understand the other people's limitations. Like when I started realizing the way trauma, affects my behavior and my choices and my emotions, and how the nervous system operates and what sets me off, and when I'm in trigger, I'm not even relating to the person in front of me. Then it helped me so much more when I saw my husband in trigger, and it looked like he was yelling at me. When I started realizing he's not even relating to me, like he's relating to some, I don't know, some teacher, somebody from the past. This is a very, very difficult thing to do, because I mean they're looking at you, right? And you see their face twisted in anger, and it's like, "Oh, no, he's yelling at me," but he's really not. So the more we understand how our own uh, body works, and mind, and the collection of mind and body, the more we can understand and kind of humanize our partners and give them that benefit of the doubt, and be in compassion. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. So lovely to see your faces, and thank you for coming with the questions. If you found these helpful, let's meet every month. So the last Tuesday of every month, I'll be offering these for my Substack paid subscribers. I'd love to continue these conversations. This is everything for me. This is when I feel most alive. So thank you. All right. Talk to you
Thank you
very,
so
very
much.
soon. You're welcome.
Okay.
Galina,
Thanks again.
that was amazing.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everyone,
Thank
for
you.
Thank
sharing.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.